The heat is rising in South Australia. Adelaide is the main source, but Matthew Nicks has got to wear his share of it. He was very positive after the game on the weekend on putting his case forward that he was being supported, but then the media identity, Stephen Rowe, has a different view of the landscape.
I've learned that I've got a pretty good footy club looking after me at the moment. Yeah, that's one of the most positive things to come out of this. It's challenging, but I've got full backing of this footy club. John and Tim have been amazing for me. Our playing group have been incredible through this tough time. Like, we're sticking tight.
John Olsen had a fair crack at people that have criticised the club, levelled 100% at me.
Appreciate your calls
But that's okay,
tonight.
John. I'll come after you next. You've presided over this.
Is he part of the problem?
Well, they all are. Of course they are. These are the leaders of a club that are here and have been there for a long time. Good on you, guys. Well done. That's our club leaders. That has really pissed me off.
Strong language. You live in this town. You know how this goes. This is Rowie at his absolute blistering best against the club, and I think the fan base are drifting in many ways in his side on this, Kane, and that's the leadership that he talks to, assumedly.
Yeah, and he's right. I mean, they're too nice, and Matthew Nicks, I've said all year, has been too nice. Lovely guy, excellent assistant coach, but he's giving his players a let-off. You could argue John Olsen the same. I think Rowie, you take the emotion out of it, has largely been spot on with what he said, Caro.
And I think they're right. I think the ones under real pressure are clearly Justin Reid. And I also think John Olsen himself is under pressure, and obviously Mark Ricciuto. I thought, did he let the players off when he said this after the game?
Yeah, we've just played 14 games in a row. So we'll take a bye now, and we need it. Our guys are looking forward to that physical and mental break. You know, this is our first look at it. Some have had 2 byes. I mean,
particularly the team you just played.
Yeah, they look quite fresh.
I thought that was an excuse, and I'm sick of the whinging about the byes. I really am.
It's a year of coaching excuses.
I know Michael Annie and Saligo and these talented young players are obviously pretty tired and are playing much bigger roles.
Yeah, but there's just
they have in
remove
the
that.
past.
Did Matthew Nicks see what Hawthorn did? They hadn't had a bye. Did he see what the Western Bulldogs had done and kick 150 points against a good side in Fremantle? They've got far bigger issues than a bye. They let a guy who Lordo showed yesterday on the Sunday Footy Show kick 9. His previous best was 4. Some of the defensive efforts on that were horrible. They generate 35 entries on the weekend. They've lost to Hawthorn rebuilding, 3 years behind them in a rebuild. They've lost to Richmond with all their injuries. So he's got bigger issues than not having a bye, and I'm sick of coaching excuses. The other big issue that they've got, which is emerging here, Hutchie, and this was put on the agenda in round 6 with Josh Ricciuto when he fronted up and owned some poor physical efforts.
The first one was just more about, I thought someone was coming right over the top of me and completely, honestly, just, wasn't brave enough in that situation, which, I'm going to have to take that and move on and learn from it. And the other one was just a complete misjudge.
So you look at that and he's owned it, but this is now in round 14, and that's another effort that you would not like to see at Sandford level. So this is a big regression for Josh Ricciuto to do that. There's been questions about why he hasn't been spending time in the midfield. Maybe because that is why. It's a big investment for a high draft pick, long contract, and once again, physically, he hasn't been up to the standard that would be accepted from his teammates in a big game. And I do worry about him now in a big final or in a big game when the spotlight's on him.
Yeah, that's damning vision, Kane, that you've just shown there. On Matthew Nicks, you'd say he's got 12 months, say this time next year.
Does
I
he?
think.
I'm convinced they're not going to move on him this year.
Yeah, and I'm the same. So I think that I reckon you go down your way and you go down swinging, and I think they're scoring. This time last year, they were the number 1 scoring team in the comp. By the end of last year. So even though they didn't make the finals, but that's gone to 12th. Look at all their numbers, how they've dropped off, scores per inside 50, so they've fallen away. I loved their first quarter and a half against the Swans. I thought they were aggressive, but maybe they thought there was nothing to lose against the best team. They have to be bolder and more aggressive and get back to how they played last year.
And you mentioned Amadi, he kicked 9, albeit not a lot of change of defender on him for the most of the game in the Adelaide end, but he was sensational and until he got taken off, which is team first from John Longmire.
Did you question the decision to have a bit of a rest late?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. He might have looked up. But it's all right, just sit down. we want him available. You know, once we had the game won, it was important. You know, important for the team that he looked after him, and we got him into next week.
And Lordo, you're a prodigy forward, so not a good example, but I love the way he's been managed. They take him as a rookie, so they pay nothing for him, and they're prepared to play a long game on him. Sit him around, buddy, nurse him, play him when he wasn't ready sometimes, a sprinkle of games, build him, and then in 23, 24 he starts to develop in a real meaningful way.
That's what the best clubs do. I think some of the guys who struggle go to the weaker clubs and they get put out there when they're not ready for it, and often they're gone by 21, 22 because their confidence is shot. So he's one of the big improvers of the season.
Yeah, having said that, I don't buy what John Longmire said about taking him off because he wanted him not to get injured.
John only cares about one thing.
It's team first.
That's a premiership.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And does a 10-goal full forward, is that just take things slightly away from the team and more on the individual? I'm sure that's what it was. I don't think it had anything to do with saving him from injury.
Good coaching.
Port have failed a few times on the big stage this year. In fact, the flat track's not going to go away as a notion anytime soon, and the result against the Giants didn't help that, did it?
It didn't, Hutchie, and you want to trust them and you want to have faith and you want to see when they can finally win a big final and make their way into a grand final. But these are the top 8 sides they've beaten in green there. The Bombers, 69 points. That was a mauling. That was their best performance. Fremantle by 3. Geelong was a good performance, despite that Geelong were in a rut. But they've got Brisbane this week, Kane. Even though it's at the Adelaide Oval, Brisbane are travelling pretty well. I'm still no more confident, probably less confident right now than I have been leading into the start of the season.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm with you, Lotto. I agree. And this wasn't great to hear from Ken Hinkley after the game.
Tonight, coming off a bye, it looked like a bit of a lethargic team tonight. We didn't look as sharp as we needed to look, and I think we need to own that ourselves and get back to being prepared to run and take the game on a little bit more.
And this is what it looked like. So regarding their pressure, they've been a pretty good pressure team this year. That's what they based their game on. These were the efforts that he's talking about. This is how lethargic they look. So they missed 10 tackles according to champion data. I reckon it was more like 20. I just saw tackle after tackle. That's the captain. These are their good players. The Giants were far hungrier. 42 seconds to go there in the third term. That's on the boundary line. That ball's got to go over, yet they go back and score again. Boundary line again. That's your friend. Get him over the boundary line, yet they miss tackles when the game's on the line in the last quarter. That was a big issue. And I reckon their fitness is a big issue, Hutchie. So I saw this from Connor Rozee, not even halfway through the last quarter or just over the halfway point of the last quarter. He's looking for the interchange bench. So 12:20 to go. He's absolutely out of his feet. I've never seen a player want to come off more. That's the captain. That's their record in second halves. They're 9th in the comp. They're 15th in red time. And I reckon I've sat here on a number of Monday nights going, why does this team get run over the top of all the time?
So they're sluggish after the bye, and the other teams are exhausted going into a bye.
There was a flatness about it. And
he has been injured though, hasn't he, Rosie?
Yeah, but he's done a power of work in terms of his endurance and getting him. So it hasn't been an injury that hasn't been able to run. So yeah, it was. I don't know. The players just look like they don't want it enough, which is a shame.
Here's Ken Hinkley speaking about the Bedford tag on Zach Butters.
Well, it's not surprised that they would put a player on him because Zach's last couple of weeks he's had a heavy tag on him, and it's nullified his influence in the game a little bit. Their choice is who they go with a running player, and obviously I know Toby's a very, very good runner, so they put the player that they thought was right. That's probably... Is it a surprise to me? I don't know their players that well.
What a shock it would have been. I think you should know them, Kenny, because Callum Ward has been always the run-with player, and he's just probably not quite there. But for Bedford, that shocked me. Would have shocked Zach Butters, I'm sure. Someone fit enough. It's a bit like the Alex Neil-Bullen one the week before, where it would surprise you that a half-forward comes to you, but he's a running machine, and it worked really, really well. And Rosie's, as Kane just showed, not running that well. Butters taken out of the game with 17 disposals. What happened to clubs who told us it mucked up your system? Your system just gets stuffed up when you do this. And I'm looking at the must-tag players. These are my must-tag players, all running players. So not the Cripps types. I reckon you shut down the ones who get you on the outside.
Power athletes.
The power athletes. These are the ones that I would not give a break for the rest of the year. And Tom Stewart's the other one, the only backman that you just keep doing it to.